If you think honestly, there is a specific moment that almost everyone recognizes. You start something with real intention, a new routine, a project, a version of yourself you're genuinely excited to become, and for the first few weeks, it feels almost effortless. And then, without any single dramatic event causing it, the feeling just leaves out of nowhere, for no real reason. The alarm goes off, and the reason you set it stops feeling urgent, unlike the moment you start at the very first place. The work still needs doing, but the fire behind it has gone out, and you're left wondering whether you were ever really serious about it in the first place, or whether that early excitement was the only thing carrying you the whole time. Korean culture has spent centuries building language around exactly this problem, because discipline was never treated there as a single trait you either have or don't. It was broken down into distinct, specific mental states, each one useful at a different moment in the process, each one with its own name, because the culture understood these are genuinely different tools for genuinely different situations. I want to walk you through 8 of them, because once you have the actual language for what you're missing in a given moment, it becomes a lot easier to go find it. Number 1. Chosim. Chosim is the state you were in on day 1, before comfort or boredom had a chance to dull anything. Korean athletes talk about returning to Chosim, specifically because they've noticed the same pattern I just described. Most people don't quit because the goal actually stopped mattering to them. They quit because they lost contact with the reason they started, and once that reason goes fuzzy, everything about the work starts to feel arbitrary and heavy. You know the exact feeling I'm talking about, even if you've never had a word for it. You're scrolling, and a reel comes up of someone standing in front of their house, stepping out of a car you'd actually want, living a life that looks nothing like the one you're currently living. And for about 30 seconds, something in you lights up completely. You think, that's it. That's what I'm building toward. I don't care what it takes. I'm doing this no matter what. That feeling is real. It's not fake or shallow just because it came from a reel. That's Chosim, showing up uninvited, reminding you exactly why you wanted any of this in the first place. The problem is that feeling almost always fades by the next morning, buried under whatever the day actually demands of you, and most people never go looking for it again once it's gone. Chosim as a practice means doing exactly the opposite. It means returning to that exact moment when the alarm feels pointless and the work feels heavy, sitting with it for a second, remembering specifically what you felt and specifically what you wanted, and letting that be enough to get you moving again. Not a new source of motivation, the same one, revisited on purpose. 2. Ttuksim. This word barely translates into English, which is exactly what makes it worth understanding. Ttuksim describes a steady, unglamorous kind of stubbornness, the kind that keeps working without needing applause, without needing to feel inspired, without needing anyone to notice. It's almost the opposite of the motivation-driven effort most self-improvement content is built around. The reason this matters is that motivation is loud and temporary, and Ttuksim is quiet and permanent. A person running on motivation needs the feeling to keep showing up in order to keep working. A person running on Ttuksim has simply decided the work continues regardless of what they feel that day. The same way you'd keep walking toward home, even on a day you weren't particularly excited about the walk. It doesn't announce itself. It's just there, day after day, doing the unglamorous work of holding everything together while nobody's watching or clapping. 3. Ogi, defiant grit. Ogi comes from a completely different place than Ttuksim, and it's worth naming separately because discipline doesn't always arrive from somewhere calm. Ogi is the fire that shows up when you've been underestimated, told you couldn't do something, or written off by people who assumed you'd never follow through. It's the "watch me" energy. Sharp, a little defiant, sometimes even bordering on spite. There's a tendency in self-improvement spaces to treat any emotion that isn't peaceful and grateful as somehow impure or unhealthy, and I think that's a mistake. Ogi is proof that discipline built from a slightly sharper emotion still counts, and can actually be one of the most powerful fuels available to you, as long as you're honest about channeling it into something constructive instead of letting it curdle into bitterness.
The person who was told they'd never finish something and finishes it, specifically because of that comment, isn't operating from a flawed motivation. They're operating from Ogi, and it works. 4. Jeongseong, grit through repetition. Jeongseong is deeply tied to Korean training culture, especially in sports and military contexts, and it describes something specific, that the ability to keep showing up through boring, repetitive work long after the initial excitement of learning something new has completely worn off. It's not about talent at all. It's about tolerance for repetition that most people give up on before it has a chance to actually produce anything. Almost every meaningful skill has a stretch in the middle where the learning curve flattens and the work stops feeling like discovery and starts feeling like maintenance. This is exactly where most people abandon what they were building, mistaking the flatness for a sign they've hit a ceiling, when it's actually just the ordinary texture of the middle of mastering anything. Jeongseong is the willingness to keep doing the rep anyway, the same drill, the same practice, the same unglamorous repetition, trusting that the flatness is temporary, even when it doesn't feel that way in the moment. 5. Jeongseong, wholehearted devotion. Jeongseong shows up throughout Korean culture in places you might not expect. The way food is prepared, the way craftsmanship is approached, the way mothers care for their children. At its core, it means doing something with your complete presence and genuine care, rather than a distracted, half-effort version of the same task. This concept matters enormously for anyone trying to build long-term discipline, because there's a quiet trap in consistency without sincerity. You can technically show up every day, technically complete the habit, and still be going through the motions so completely disengaged that the consistency produces almost nothing real. Jeongseong is the reminder that discipline isn't just about frequency. It's about whether you're actually present for the thing you're doing, or just performing the appearance of doing it while your mind is somewhere else entirely. 6. Innae. Innae is usually translated simply as patience, but the English word undersells what it actually means. Innae isn't passive waiting. It's the ability to endure genuine hardship without breaking, to hold your composure under real pressure across long stretches of time, not just a single difficult afternoon. This distinction matters because a lot of what people call patience is really just comfort in disguise, waiting for something easy to arrive. Innae describes something closer to what athletes experience in the later miles of a long race, where the discomfort is real and constant, and the only way through is continuing to endure it without letting it break your form or your resolve. Building genuine Innae means practicing composure specifically during the stretches that are actually hard, not just during the parts of your routine that were already comfortable. 7. Jeolje. Jeolje comes from Confucian tradition, which shaped a huge amount of Korean and broader East Asian thought, and it describes the discipline of knowing when to hold back, not indulging every impulse the moment it arrives, understanding at a deep level that restraint itself is a form of strength rather than a form of repression or deprivation. This runs directly against how a lot of modern culture frames self-expression, where acting on every impulse immediately gets treated as authenticity. Jeolje suggests something different, that the ability to notice an impulse, sit with it, and choose deliberately whether to act on it is actually where real strength lives, not in the impulse itself. A person with genuine Jeolje isn't suppressing who they are. They're simply not being controlled by every passing urge, which is a completely different thing, and a far more powerful position to operate from. 8. Susin. Susin is the philosophical backbone underneath everything else on this list, also rooted in Confucian thought. It refers to the ongoing, daily work of refining your own character before you attempt to lead, influence, or teach anyone else. The idea is that discipline was never really about achieving a specific external goal in the first place. It's about who you're steadily becoming through the daily practice of refining yourself, with or without an audience, with or without external proof that it's working. This reframes everything the other 7 concepts point toward. Chosim, Ttuksim, Ogi, Gunseong, Jeongseong, Innae, and Jeolje aren't separate tools for hitting separate targets. They're all expressions of Susin, the daily, quiet work of becoming a more disciplined, more complete version of yourself, regardless of whether anyone's tracking your progress or clapping when you get there. None of these 8 concepts require you to become a different person overnight. What they offer is a specific vocabulary for the exact state you're missing on any given hard day. Some days you need Chosim, a return to why you started. Some days you need Ogi, a bit of defiance to push through. Some days you just need Gunseong, the willingness to do the boring rep one more time. Discipline was never really one thing. It's a set of tools, and now you have names for all of them. That's it for today. If one of these 8 genuinely resonated with where you're at right now,
I'd like to know which one. Tell me in the comments. See you in the next one.